Fleur Choy. This
Hello.
this is going to be an interesting one because when I decided to do this channel, having conversations with interesting people, I didn't realize quite possibly the most interesting conversation could be staring at my face every single day, almost every minute, and that's about us. And I think I'm really excited to share not only what you do, but how we are. And this is going to be. I would like to we're going to be exposed because we're going to get into some crazy stuff about sex, um, our relationship, exactly how from a man's perspective in our relationship, from your perspective in our relationship, and also tying into what you do that I think is from observing what you do from a distance and sort of knowing this, especially from a guy being a man and holding space for a very strong, powerful woman that helps women find themselves. I think this is going to be an interesting talk, and I'm so excited to actually do this with you because maybe this might even level up us. So I'm excited, to be vulnerable, to be honest. But to start things off, it's not just going to be a sex talk. I want people to know where you're coming from. So maybe just start with explaining what exactly you do and where your business, where your life, where your practice is heading.
Okay. Yeah, that's a vast subject. I'm glad we end up doing it, on the dot, not thinking too much because we've been kind of talking about it, and there is so many avenue that we could talk about, and so many things we are interested that connect to what you do and what I do, and um, okay. It's always a little bit difficult for me to sum up what I do because it's coming from like um, like more like a feeling that a knowing. And so for a very long time, I thought that I was the problem in my life and I was trying to do life the way I thought I was supposed to do it. And it felt very uncomfortable. And I thought I was the problem. And through that, I deep dive into the nervous system and what it can look like when you're a sensitive person into this crazy world we live in. And that took me into this roller coaster of, realizing that maybe what I thought, the life that I thought was good for me, was actually not something I was choosing from a conscious place, but something that was guided to me, and pretty much society telling me, oh yeah, this is what you do, this is what you do at 30, this is what you do at 35, and this is your identity, and this is who you are, and your all worthiness, it's linked to your output in this world, and who you are doesn't really matter. So long story short, it took me into this ride of the nervous system and how connecting sensitivity into our life and actually connecting back to our humanness, I want to say, because ultimately, from what's, your perspective on health and my perspective on the nervous system, but also the psyche, that is something we discuss a lot, and all the things we believe and all the things we make through because we think it's not always the case. So
Okay, because you've come. When I first met you, we connected through your endometriosis. That's for another day. We're not really going to get into that, but we connected on a deeper level. I was always feeling very close to you, comfortable with you, and I've noticed that with the people that you're working with, even being involved with some of the practices, with some of the the sessions. And also, Fleur hypnotized me. We're going to get into this, but she hypnotized me and gave me a full-on crazy orgasm. And yes, I said that as a guy, without touching, and it was insane. But how this all sort of, how she got into this, you come from a spiritual, energetic, Reiki, sound healing background. And when I started helping you with your diet over the years, you were able to travel. You went away for the first time in a long time because of, the body's healing. So you've been able to connect that body, mind, soul pretty well. I mean, with all the stuff that you do, and I see it. But this stuff is, I think, coming from being a witness of your evolution into this orgasmic hypnosis and being a hypnotist and being an embodiment, empowering practitioner, helping women get to places where they don't even realize they can go, and using these tools to heal. Because your thoughts and your perspective, like, I really, really want to get into why maybe every woman should think about a pleasure practice. And that sounds weird from a guy talking about it. And I'll tell you, I don't think our relationship could be possible in me being 10 years ago me, because, you are very strong, and the stuff that I've seen you do and been a part of, it's quite fascinating. And it takes an open mind, and it takes, like, if you can imagine trying to pitch your business or this sort of way of looking at things to women, let alone from a guy's perspective, being with you and your partner, it can be very intimidating and very possibly even scary. So how did you become more involved with looking at pleasure as a healing practice?
Yeah, well, I think it's from my, from my personal curiosity. And I'm a long life learner. I love learning, things. And when COVID happened, I had so much time on me, so it was, okay, what can I learn? And I dive into tantra and neo tantra that is more connected to my background in energy healing and the subtle that we have all around us. And through those, very old practices that actually reconnects us to our body, I noticed how it was affecting my everyday life, and especially cultivating state of pleasure that came a little bit down the line with my own exploration, and also this orgasmic hypnosis, putting kind of like everything in perspective into why pleasure, and just like exploring, like for me, all of that is journey that we explore, and connecting our body, that the tantrika would believe it's the real temple of everything is actually the body. And I got very interested by all those concepts because I love spirituality. I love connection to God. But in my quest toward all of that, the narrative was a lot about disconnecting about the body, and the body being dirty, not good, at least not as good as the rest. And all my my life as a highly sensitive person, I connect to that a lot, because being in my body was uncomfortable, was overwhelming. I was like feeling like a deer in the headlights all the time. So all my coping mechanisms were about disconnecting, numbing, getting high, but really like separating myself from what I think now is like one of the most important parts of being a human being, which is like the physical.
Well, from a man's perspective as well, is, you said a lot of things there that kind of that people don't realize that we're all, the yin yang, it's the masculine feminine, and it doesn't mean being enlightened is comfortable in your body. And I think a lot of times being disconnected might have a lot to do with our programming, the history of how we got here, how women have been overly accused of things, overly empowered. And I think, I don't want people to take that the wrong way, but the feminist movement, where's it coming from? What's it actually doing? I think we've taken ourselves way far away from the divine feminine. As men, we don't celebrate the divine feminine. It's almost something else. And all these things that have been, the goddess, the mother, they've been they've been taken differently. They're misunderstood. And from what you've shown me, especially now, that is that sort of bridge to all things. And it ties into being comfortable in your body, your nervous system being calm, relaxed, actually being able to enjoy being you. And I don't want to sound crazy, but we're offering our vulnerabilities here. When we first started having sex, I don't think Fleur was very comfortable with us. It took some time for us to come into ourselves, and we get along. We get along great. I've never been so connected to somebody on so many levels, but it still was work. And it even freaked me out at one point where, I was confused about, is it me? Is she enjoying me? Is this good? So that's another side. But you seem to help women be a lot more comfortable in your body. And that's why this orgasmic hypnosis sounds so crazy, but maybe you can talk through what exactly that is, because I think people have this misconception of hypnosis being, you're going to make somebody do something they're not, you're going to reprogram them or get into their head in a certain way. And I know from feeling it, from being a guinea pig, that's not the case at all.
Yeah, and it was so beautiful to see you trusting me and being open and curious about the experience. I have a lot of fascinating conversation with men and women about pleasure, and all of those conversations bring a lot of stigma, taboo, belief. All this part of ourselves is really activating, who we are and what is expected from us and what sexuality look like. And all of that put us in very small boxes. And if you, or maybe when we realize that we are multifaceted being, not only the physical self, but an emotional self, an energetic self, different layer, different facet of a being, we're so complex. And when we realize that what we thought were certain things are not, I truly believe that sexuality and ultimately, connecting with someone, but also connecting with yourself, right? Through a certain state is one of the most powerful healing thing you can do. Yeah. And all of that has been twisted. All of that has been perverted, changed. and bringing the guilt and the shame and all this taboo about our desire and what we can allow ourselves to desire, and working with women where, pretty much women were taught to be a certain way and to...
Well, even, sorry to interrupt you, but even about like just the whole female cycle itself has been like, it's almost like you're embarrassed to have that 7 days of, and from my perspective, being with you, I have to be aware of that 7 days because it's important because of what you've been, with endometriosis. It's obviously that's for another talk about what you actually go through, but being your partner and seeing you go through this, it's really, really on my mind, and we have to be able to talk about it. If we were together and we couldn't talk about what you go through in those 7 days, and guys, like, it's time to wake up because this is part of natural life. And, what I think Fleur is going to allude to now is women have the rights and the ability to enjoy their own body, and we have to support that as men. We have to. So, Fleur's, you've been going into this, and it's so impressive to watch you talk to. Well, not really. I'm not paying attention to every session, but I've been a part of some group sessions as a guy with a lot of women, and it's nice to see that women open up to you because they're tapping into something that I think has been so tabooed for so long, that it's an avenue. So I would love to hear how important it is, especially, let's talk about that. Maybe we can talk about the nervous system, how important your nervous system is to actually allowing yourself to open up and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, like your nervous system is kind of like the baseline of your body, right? And your body always talk to you in messages. And you were talking about period earlier. We all of that is seen as inconvenience. All of that is seen as discomfort. And actually, all of that is messages. But we've been trained and conditioned to disregard all those messages because it doesn't fit our modern life. And it doesn't fit, what I truly believe is like a more harmonious way to live, which is kind of on the cycle of season, right? Like if you go back to nature, Mother Nature, it's all about cycles. It's all about, like we live in Vancouver, so maybe we dread winter a little bit, right? And we might not like it, but all of that is like a part of the cycles. And we're so disconnected from it that it disconnects us from our true nature. And especially as women, because women are connected so much to life, to creating life and blooming and expanding that way. And the world that we live in, you can see that as a very linear world, very masculine, action-oriented. We're not into the feeling of things. So for women that take their wisdom from their intuition, and their intuition being like totally connected to their body, their nervous system, and the sixth sense that we most all have it, but we might not be aware of it, that disconnect of our true nature. And so when we reconnect to what is my body is telling me right now through the message of my nervous system. So it might be chronic stress, it might be anxiety. And yes, it might be like disconnection to the body, numbing, not paying attention. All of that has consequences in life, and especially how, the mind-body connection and how we're attuned to ourselves and how we hold ourselves, our boundaries into this world, right? And we see that time and time again, that women are supposed to be pretty but quiet, not using too much space, and all of that is kind of distilled into our psyche.
Yeah.
And that's impact our pleasure, because the way we see ourselves, the way we are comfortable in our body, how we can actually fill up our cup, as women, as mother into this world, right? Like we've not been taught how to do that. All our energy as women is supposed to be outward into the world. And you see a lot of burnout out there. You see a lot of autoimmune, right? Like it's always fascinating to realize how health, so many women are suffering from autoimmune. This is not a gender disease. This is not something that is connected to a chromosome. Like it's important to realize that we're living in a very toxic world,
The odds are stacked
especially
against
for
us.
women.
No doubt, especially for women. And okay, because now we've touched a little bit on the nervous system. Now I want to get into us a little bit, because when we think orgasm, specifically from a guy's standpoint, it's physical. It's tug it, whatever, get in there, whatever, blowjob, and or sex, and we just ejaculate. That's the probably on most guys' mind. That's what it is. Now, for a woman, there's different kinds of orgasms, and I want to talk about, when we started having sex, there was a couple blocks that we had to work through with you, because it wasn't just about me pleasing you or me performing well, or there was some things that were going on that we had to work through. So by any stretch, we're not perfect. And the stuff that you're talking about, you're constantly working with yourself to try and enjoy this life a little bit better. But let's start with the orgasm. Explain a physical and the emotional side of, because a lot of people don't understand that there's more aspects to it.
Yeah, I mean, like there is a lot. Like it can get mystical and esoteric very fast, because actually, like scientifically, our understanding of orgasm and pleasure in general is very small compared to what it really is.
Shout out to Fleur's video. Go check out on her channel, because she says like they know more. They landed on the moon allegedly before they mapped the clitoris, which is crazy. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just thought that was fun.
Yeah, no, but that's a real thing. That's a real thing. And like I think there is like many layer into it, right? And what we experienced at the beginning of our relationship was more about my nervous system activation, and how, unfortunately, and I didn't have too many like people I could fully trust in my previous relationship. And so that kind of built an understanding of partnership that was scary and potentially threatening. And because of all this narrative, my body had a very hard time relaxing. And we see that in intimacy and pleasure, because all of that is a very vulnerable state. And when we get into the intimacy, that's mean intimacy, it can feel very uncomfortable to be seen, but beyond all the narrative, to open. So as much as my conscious want to open to you, my subconscious, which is 90% of my psyche, is like, let's not go there, because it's potentially threatening. So we won't relax fully. We won't open fully. We won't receive fully my nerve ending. So the mind-body connection is actually not fully happening.
Yeah.
And because of potential threat, we're numbing and disconnecting. And when you do that on the whole spectrum of things. So I don't want to feel pain, but as I'm numbing and disconnecting from potential pain, I'm numbing myself from pleasure as well. And that can feel very triggering for me, for you, for what the fuck is going on.
And for the record, it wasn't like we weren't trying or we want to be there for each other. Like this is the I think a lot of people might take something out of this, specifically men, is it's not all about you, dude. This is deeper. We have it easy as far as the physical side of things in that situation. And it's, the woman is so much more complex. And if you're in a relationship and you're trying to get to that point, you need to look a little bit deeper than just the physical. And what Fleur's been able to do in her life is she's been, very, very aware energetically and sensitive. So in my life, I've had this spiritual awakening over the last few years, and I would not have been capable to have this conversation, let alone be part of this relationship sexually and emotionally, because there would have been a block for me as well. So it's really important to understand that there's so many moving parts and, nervous system, your state, like just the state of your mind at the time. And I mean, I have a really tough time getting intimate with Fleur when we've been working all day, when I've been like on the computer and like all this tech crap is going through my head. To shut it off instantly and get hard and then get into it is very difficult for me. And it takes a real commitment to actually commit to her and the situation. Now imagine, I can only imagine, well, I can't even imagine actually, from a woman's point of view. Guys, we need to take our time. And can you talk a little bit about that, about maybe how women perceive that, like changing that from physical to a mental standpoint? Does that make sense?
Well, like, when we think about intimacy, when I'm talking about sex all the time with people. So like, that's a question I'm going through, very often. You might not ask around people, but I'm like, when you think about sex, what are you thinking about? And what most people are thinking about is about penetration. Mm-hmm. This is like all the flavor and the spices of life, becoming very narrow-minded and also goal-oriented, because the only meaning is that. Yeah. And that's a part of it. We love it, but that's not the only part. And, when you say like, maybe like men have it easier, I think actually it's most complicated to them, because yeah, and also because of like the way we see masculinity and femininity, this all subtle aspect of the self, the emotional aspect of the self. There is like all this literacy that men might not have learned, most likely. Yeah. Right? And we're all emotional people. We think we're very logical, that the conscious self is driving our life. This is a mistake. This is actually a lie. Mm. And it might feel more comfortable because we think we are in control, but we're not in control. What controls us is our belief. Yeah. And that, I think it's like a step that might be triggering for many of us, because that's why I said at the beginning, like, life is not the way, we think it is. And that's this awakening is tough, because you challenge everything. You challenge your way of life. You challenge the way you've been maybe taught pleasure. You challenge how what a healthy sexuality and relationship look like like it can be like quite unsettling, right, to go there.
Yeah.
And connecting with women, into their pleasure, like pleasure is a bonus, it's extra, it's not something women focus on.
Mm.
It's something they leave at the end of their to-do list. They take care of everybody and everything, and at the end of the day everybody is too tired to actually go there. And that is, we call it practices, and it's make it look like work a little bit. But how are we unwinding from our day? How we are shifting gear? You were saying like how, taking like from like a stressful day to like intimacy time can be difficult. And it's normal that it's difficult because we haven't learned to unwind and be like, okay, we're shifting gear now. We were
Mm.
activated during the day because we need to do a bunch of stuff. But right now, it's not about doing, it's about being, it's about feeling. And all of that, it's shifting the nervous system. And usually, we're in chronic activation that create chronic stress, chronic anxiety, even inflammation in the body. All of that, it's against being in, like if you want to make babies and be fertile, like you need to overflow. You're not in stressful,
Yeah.
potentially threatening states, right? All of that going to prevent you to actually reproduce. So to be sexually performing, right? Because like you're not, the body is like, where? No, 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 no. You're supposed to run away now because maybe a lion or a bear
Mm.
gonna chase you. So this is where we're at on the nervous system level, but most of us are so disconnected that this is the regular baseline, right?
Mm.
We're not, ooh, let's connect into our pleasure on the regular basis, because pleasure actually shifts everything. And I always have those conversations with women that been really invested into their growth, into their life to become a better person, a better partner, a better mother, all of that, but they never like focus on themselves. But they put the reps, to figure things out. But the thing is not on the logical brain perspective. Like we have to drop down into our body to show our nervous system that actually we can chill, relax, connect, feel more, that all of that is good, that is welcome, that is even healing.
Yeah. And it's also like you mentioned practice there. It's like it's not only a practice, but it does take practice. When you've been riding high on distractions of life and everything is happening bang 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 bang, to just go still and be calm and allow is it takes awareness. It takes like I meditate and we do breath work all the time. We'll talk about that as well. But being able to get into yourself still, it takes not only to be aware that it takes practice, but you do get better at it. And I've watched your practice and I'm telling you, like Fleur has a pleasure practice. So all the people that aren't confident in themselves, imagine walking home or walking in the door and seeing a pleasure practice. Like, okay, yeah, it happens. Now what do? Do I get mad and jump, or mad and be like, oh, I'm not involved in this and jealous? Or do I jump on her bones because I think my ego is telling me she needs me right now? I'm like, no, you know what? It's in my job is to allow me to accept and let Fleur be her and understand this is to do with her. It has nothing to do with me. And from a partnership perspective, that was, I'm not going to say difficult now in my life. It's not difficult because all I care about, well, not all I care about, but I give a shit on how Fleur is. And it's important to me that she does things for her. And I feel better when she feels better. And this is something that might be a little bit weird for people. Like, you know, it's not Fleur walking in on me jerking off on the couch. This is not what we're talking about at all. It's just, this is something that it takes a mature soul to realize that there's a lot more at work here than just pleasure is deeper than just physical getting off. And that's what I think, you know, is a big thing to realize. And even for guys, and I'm telling you, from the orgasm that Fleur gave me, the best orgasm she ever gave me, she wasn't touching me. And it was all, you know, it was induced by hypnosis, and it's mind-blowing. And I want to talk about that, Fleur, because maybe we can talk about, before we get into the actual orgasmic hypnosis, talk about trance state and how important it is to be in a theta state, if you will, with all this stuff.
Yeah, so it's, you know, like I cannot help myself but notice how all the modalities and practices and self-help that I found along those years, I realized at some point that it puts you in this very particular brain states that we call scientifically that theta brain state. And that more commonly we talk about the trance state. And, you know, like I received hypnosis before, right? I quit smoking with hypnosis. I noticed how it was, I mean, fascinating how, you know, as a smoker, you know you need to quit smoking, but a part of you is not there. Like a part of you doesn't get the memo, right? And that's an example that for me left a mark on my understanding of hypnosis, because when you work in, you know, self-help, growth, you know, self-actualization, like this is all about that, like growing, right? And just noticing how, you know, like the bunch of stuff that you should do, but you don't always do it. And why don't we? Because it's supposed to be good for us. Like it always, for me, was very interesting just to notice that. And that got me into the mind, the psyche, how, you know, there is a part of us that is very powerful that run in the background, and we're never really consciously connect to all of that, right? And so going into hypnosis and deepening my understanding of trance state, I realized that trance state is, well, one, supernatural. Like this is something that we go in and out depending on what we do. And those different states in the brain have function, right? So you can see like beta brainwaves is the activated states that kind of make sense if you need to do stuff, but you don't need to be always like that. So therefore, you need to be versatile and flexible into those states. And so when you use, and it can be very wide, you know, because you're driving, you're in trance. So that gives you kind of like an idea. You're like, oh, whoa, I'm not
It's like
lobotomized zombie
like,
state, right?
Yeah, it's like, imagine everybody's done this, where you're driving to wherever it is, you're going through the traffic, and then all of a sudden you get there, you're like, what happened? How, holy cow, that drive, I didn't even feel like I was driving. We all do it. Your brain goes somewhere else, and your subconscious is taking the wheel, literally.
Exactly. And so that you're at no point in time you're driving like, ooh, I'm in trance. I mean, like, you know, if you're more familiar, you're like, ooh, yeah, I'm in the zone. Yeah. I'm feeling I'm in automatic mode with my hands, but really focus on the road. Like that would be this kind of state. And, you know, like kids are in these states all the time because they need to be sponge and absorb a lot of new stuff.
Also could be labeled flow state. Flow state would be in a trance. You know, athletes, they speak about it. You know, they're just in the groove, whatever you call it, the flow, where you're not thinking, you're just doing. It is happening. And Yeah. So I'm just,
And so athletes use that all the time.
yeah.
Just so you know, I have an echo.
I don't know. I don't have an echo, not on this side, but
Okay.
we're good. We're in
So
the same house, by the way, right now. We're in different rooms. And, you know, the whole reason for this was to like, I think, you know, we both are doing our things in our lives, and these things are important. And we're, you know, from different perspectives, helping people find themselves, really. And I mean, I come from the nutrition and health space, where most of my clients, they figure it out on their own. My job is to guide them to a place where they can think for themselves. And that's something with Fleur. She does it with women, and a lot, like, these are tapping into different tools to achieve this sort of the same place. It's healthy, and it's this stuff. We're trying to have this conversation so to show that, you know, we talk about this stuff, and it's not necessarily do this, don't do that, but to explore these options where you might be hung up on life somewhere, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, in a relationship, to empower you that there's different options. And hypnosis, especially from my perspective, from what Fleur's done for me and how many times I've had a past life regression, I'm a lot more aware to the potential of hypnosis, and I'm actually comfortable getting still and being in my own mind. That's something that people, can you talk about that, Fleur? Because people get hung up on maybe the difference between mesmerized and hypnotized.
yeah, well, I think like, you know, we can get in trance and not realizing it. So there is a lack of awareness, because all of that, you know, like start on and off on its own. It's all automatic. And so you can have this idea of trance state and being like puppet mastered with suggestion. But you have, you know, like a bunch of people, you were talking about athlete and sport people, right? Like they actually use trance states to increase, to make better time, or increase their, you know, whatever they're doing to get better at things, right? So all of that is from this sport or extreme pushing, like military elite. They know all of that. Like,
Yeah.
it's
So
well known and used, but like for people, for us, the little people, we have this belief that it's actually bad. It's dangerous.
So would you say visualization practices, affirmation practices would be sort of like the gateways into putting yourself in a trance state?
Yeah, totally. And you can go, you know, like there is like healing sounds, there is special frequencies you can use, but it's also work a lot with your emotion. So if you like particularly something, it's going to help you to go into trance, because all of that go through relaxation stage, right? Like you cannot get into this trance flow states that you can use into your job and having creative ideas, and, you know, like using all of that, if you're somehow on one aspect let go more. And most people have a very hard time to relax. They stay in their mind. They often say, like, my brain cannot turn off. Like, I'm in my bed trying to sleep, and, like, you know, like all those ideas are what?
Stop it. We just got my power all just went cut out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Just cut out. Are you still recording? Okay. The weirdest thing just happened. My power on my side of the house went out, and Fleur's didn't. So we're gonna pick it up back right where we were. So hopefully where we left off, and we'll. Yeah. So you remember where we were? I don't really.
We were talking about Theta brain waves and the trance state and how it's look like. And So you can be in trance in so many ways. And if you listen your favorite music, if you start to dance, like anything like that would actually activate these flow states. And so once you know that, you can use it. You can use it to actually reprogram yourself, and pleasure enter into that, because when you are in a pleasure state, you are in trance. So that's like
Okay.
an even deeper
So
state.
this trance, you're going through, I think the last session is tonight. This you named this program, this series, um, using hypnosis, not necessarily orgasmically, but to help people, and it's called Shift. And I want you to talk a little bit about what Shift is.
Yes, so shift came to be from this reflection about why don't we do what we think we should do, and vice versa, right? Like from this realization that we are into a framework from our limiting belief, and that once we know that, we have the opportunity to expand our belief, and from there transform our life, because we will shift ourselves. So that's why I called it Shift.
Hmm.
And this first series that we're finishing tonight was to go through the 7 universal wounds, like wounds, emotional wounds that we all have, like grief, typically, like knowing loss, knowing betrayal, like all of that. If you are in tune with your body, you can actually work, because as you hear those words, your subconscious that is listening through the body, and you say betrayal, and there is like like right now, like it's like all here for me. And once I am conscious and aware of that, I can move the energy and work with that very powerfully.
Nice.
And that's the whole beauty of, like, we want to be better people, most of us want to anyway. And it's tough, right? We think it's about willpower, we're trying to power it through. And what I've been seeing time and time again, it's that it's not sustainable.
So we're going to post the links for Fleur Shift, and I know you're going to do another series soon. All this, like, I've done a few of them when I can, and it's really interesting how a lot of stuff with my father came up. That's obviously for another story, but it's interesting how these things can some of the things we're not aware of that our body is, and when it gets released and working through these things, it's very powerful. And I, from firsthand experience, being part of quite a few of these sessions, it's an interesting, a different way of dealing with a lot of stuff that we're unaware of, and bringing the awareness to these potential modalities and these healing practices. It's powerful. And we'll keep you posted with all that stuff. Now, a couple other things before we go, because you don't want to be taking everybody's time too long. But having these conversations, I think we're probably going to do this a little bit more regularly, because I think what you do and what I've seen you do and help, who you've helped and along the way, these are things that aren't very well known, or maybe not connected to what you would think of as therapy, as healing, as spiritual. And it's getting the awareness out there that this stuff is very, very powerful in a personal way. And you do a very good job making people feel safe. And once people understand sort of where you're coming from, it takes away that whole, what do you mean orgasmic hypnosis? It's more than that. There's a reason. So before we get into before we say goodbye, I want you to tell people what PPP is.
Yes. So I realize how important it is for women to be connected to each other and to learn from each other. And there is something that is very beautiful that happen when women go to those different processes together. And right now I'm finishing this beautiful journey that I call Presence, Pleasure, Power, where women are starting to experience what you would call full body orgasm, where you can actually circulate energy that it's create pleasure and sensation, to be fully open to all those subtle parts that become not so subtle at some point.
Mhm.
And all of that is like the reclamation of their own body, of the complexity and the depth of who they are as a woman, integrating like sexual being, this powerful piece that we disconnect ourselves. Like, I think it's prevent women to build and fully shining in the world, to prevent them to expand and to keep them small and disembodied. Once you're embodied and you connect with those powerful energy, it changes the way you do life. It's kind of like ripple into everything and shift the way, um, you see yourself and others.
I've never heard of anything like it. So, I know there's people that are doing uh different practices, different things, but it's a lot of women, as much as there's a lot of groups and things. I think this is tapping into something that's sacred, something that's pure, whole themselves, and it's empowering from the foundation, right? And I think you do an unbelievable job making me feel good and making me feel safe, and I trust you with all my heart. And I mean, I know from the people that I've talked to that you've helped feel the same way. And if anybody's interested in, if they have any more questions about what you do, or have any more, or anything that you're going to be coming up with next, and even just taking on clients, how do people find you? What's the best way to get a hold of you and follow you and all that stuff?
Yeah, you can find me at fleurchoy.com, on all other platforms. Fleur Choy. Yeah, this is like something I'm deeply passionate about, and I see there is so much sense of liberation for those women to go through um, those journey. So I can't wait to connect with more people and to get people to experience more of trance. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's fantastic. And also, we do a weekly practice at actually it's a spiritual sort of holistic bookstore, and we do a consciousness awareness meditation breath work practice. And Fleur has a great way of grounding, connecting, and I love your voice, and I love listening to you. So I can only imagine everybody else does too, because you're so beautiful, and I appreciate you, and I love you so much. And just having the courage to talk about this stuff, I think kudos to me too, to kind of get a little bit uncomfortable and talk about some stuff that's you know probably not talked about very often. And I think we're going to probably continue these conversations to just show that there's guys, we can be better guys for our women and support them being better, and allowing them and letting them shine and embrace the divine feminine, divine mother, Gaia, all of it. It's all connected. And so, Fleur, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. I love you, and thanks for having a conversation with me today.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. Thank you so much.